This is the Medical Amateur Radio Council Grand Rounds on the Internet. We meet every Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern. Today we're talking about women in amateur radio, and it's a continuation of a program from last year celebrating the women in our ranks on Mother's Day weekend and Mother's Day and last year. And we have here with us today NM2K and KN2M, the dynamic couple. They led this discussion last year. This year we're making a video and adding a little bit material to it from my experiences, and they have a wonderful foundation that I was able to build upon. So our net is open to all amateurs. If you're listening on 20 meters, we encourage you to check in. We will have a roundtable forum here tonight. We have some guests with us today. We have Whiskey Alpha 1 Sierra with us, and she'll be participating in today's program as well. We have others on board here. Trina, KE0PIE is with us. So for all the women in amateur radio that are here with us today, thank you for giving up part of your Mother's Day weekend to do so. The Medical Amateur Radio Council, of course, we meet here on shortwave. This has been going on amateur radio for many years. I mean, we've been in existence since 1966 as a group that promotes goodwill and fellowship amongst hams. Worldwide, we're professionals in the hearing arts. We have an interest in the various medical, dental, and allied fields which constitute the healing arts. So all our leaders and members are not necessarily health professionals. We've had individuals that were worked in the rails and trains. We've had pilots and a lot of IT members as well. So we encourage everyone to, if you're on 20 meters, to check in and participate. Don't worry if you're not a healthcare ham. Our explanations, though, when we do talk about medical subjects, are not medical recommendations. For follow-up on any subject matter covered as it pertains to our health, make sure to speak to your healthcare topic. We do meet to explore our passions, after all. This is a net, and our passion on our net is having interactive forums on health-related topics. So women in amateur radio, I'm sure you've seen changes in the years, as well as you've seen in education, in STEM-related education. Many more engineering students at the college level are women, even in fields like chemical engineering and certainly in electrical engineering. And I've had the opportunity to see that firsthand at the University of Florida, but approximately 15% of hams are women. Now, I don't know if we would go back into the 1960s and 1970s, what that percentage would be, but I imagine we're going to be seeing this increase greatly from seeing the activity that's being done at the STEM level with teenagers and preteens getting more and more licensed. So should be an Elmer, or do we need an Elmira at this point? Are some of our terms in ham radio outdated, or is it just a proud tradition? I mean, you've got OM. The first time that I heard old boy in Morse code, OB, I didn't know what it was. I had to ask, hearing it from somebody in the British world. But YLs and XYLs, are they enduring terms? And they are. I mean, there's even an organization, the Young Ladies Radio League. I'm proud. I know Ann's a member, and Ann's been highlighted on their website. And we'll introduce Ann momentarily. But if you go to that website, if you want to check it out in detail, it's ylrl.net. ylrl.net. Young Ladies Radio Amateur League. And that's why I asked. I mean, are we outdated in the terms? Because if you look on the photograph on their website, you'll notice it's women of all ages, not just YLs. Of course, we have the problem on the men. We have lots of OMs that are not old men. So we have recognized that these are abbreviations for use for Morse code and such, not necessarily represented. But how long ago did Young Ladies Radio League form? It was 1939, because they wanted to start networking, and 12 women banded together in that male-dominated activity, growing an organization that reaches around the world, and members from all walks of life, all ages, all levels, of ham radio interest, and whether they got into the hobby to talk locally or go around the world to the strangest of places, the one interest they had in common with other women, and this is taken directly from their website, was amateur radio. I'm going to pause here for just a second to identify Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta, AA4 F Alpha Mike, operating out of Hawthorne, Florida, my home station here today. Our net has been in existence for many years on this frequency, actually, for well over 15 years. Our organization dates back to 1966. It's open, the net is open to all amateurs, as you can tell by the conversations that we're about to have, the interactive forums, the discussions asking everyone's not just opinion, but their experiences. As we roundtable, we encourage you to as well. That being said, do we have any additional check-ins at this time? Make your call to Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Okay, well, no further check-ins. Now we'll pause periodically. Now, Ann and I were chatting before the net started, and she was talking about the women that are involved in POTAs and SOTAs, the summits on the air out west. And that's a way for people to merge their desire to exercise with amateur radio. So summits on the air has been very popular. Of course, Parks on the Air is extremely popular as well, but not as much on the exercise activity. And the SOTAs include activity by women. There's a YL Summit on the Air special event. It starts on June 7th. This was advertised or listed on their website. So that's coming up here in June. If you'd like to participate. The biggest change from last year is that they were inviting YLs from around the world to activate summits. This is an activity that's a healthy activity. There's a great deal of positive feedback. I've seen numerous photos on the internet and QRZ of groups of women that they get out and activate summits. We know it's a popular activity. Isn't it nice to see that amateur radio is expanding to have activities like this, get us out from our microphone at our desks and out in the real world into the fresh air, POTAs and SOTAs, and expands the reach of amateur radio and people that would otherwise be interested. We're such a dynamic hobby, and obviously there's not just one hobby here. Now, it's a picture of Ann, WA1S, is on that particular website. I'm fortunate to have Ann here and be friends with Ann. And I'm spoiled now because Ann's moved to Florida, and I get to see her quite often. So, Ann, if you would like to unmute, you're going to come into Zoom audio here, and I'd like to introduce you to everybody. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background in amateur radio, Ann? Go ahead.
Okay. I first started, actually, my interest in ham radio actually sparked in high school. And the principal of my high school was very, he was an advocate of me getting my ham license. And he recently passed away at the ripe old age of 90. His name was Robert Poniatowski, a Alpha Foxtrot 1 India. And it's also sparked my interest in electronics. I have a degree in computer engineering, which is a cross between electrical engineering and computer science. I originally wanted to get a double E, but the Roger Williams College back then, now it's a university in Rhode Island, did not offer a full double E program. So I said, what's close that I can get a full engineering degree? So it was the computer engineering degree, and I happen to be retired now after nearly 40 years in the electronics field. The last practically 30 years was with the Federal Aviation Administration, which my last job was actually working on air-to-ground communications, replacing the old antiquated 60s vintage air-to-ground radios that the air traffic controllers used to communicate with the airplanes. And so I got my license in June of 1979, which happened to be the same year I graduated high school. So I've been in this hobby for 46 years. And I love traveling in DXpeditions, although I haven't been on many recently because of certain things that happened in my life. One was being a divorce, but I started out my DXpeditions going. Actually, the first one was Grenada in 1996, and that was with Paul and Charlotte. KQ1F is Charlotte, and she's been around a long time, longer than me. And Paul, um, K1XM, they live up in Massachusetts. So some of these trips, actually, I went on that Jay's showing. I actually stems back with them, and they've also pushed me along. I've been to Willis Island, Micronesia, Grenada, Kingman Reef. Actually, Kingman Reef has been deleted for all you DXers out there, and I was the first YL and the last activation on Kingman Reef before it actually got deleted from the DXCC program. And then I was invited by a very special friend of mine, Noriko 7 Kilo 3 Echo Oscar Papa. I was invited to go to Japan. She was with me on Willis Island, and I kind of took her under my wing because she's Japanese, and I could, in Australia, English is the official language. So I rented a car, took her all over the place, along with Elvira, India Victor 3, uh, Fox. I forget her call sign, but she's very right now. She's been going all over the place in Africa. She operates a lot of FT8 and some Charlie whiskey. IV3FSG. That's a call, and this is Whiskey Alpha One Sierra, because I know it's being broadcasted on the radio. So yeah, and that was Noriko invited me to go to celebrate the anniversary of the Japanese Amateur Radio League. So I went to Ogasawara, also called it was Bonin Island in 2002, and I had a great time in Japan. And I've been to Bermuda, Curry Atoll, and that was the last activation on Curry was 2005, and it's in the top 10 of the most wanted list. Trying to get somebody out there is going to be a challenge because the Fish and Wildlife, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife is in charge of that island now, and it's very, very difficult to get permission. And then in 2006, I participated in the World Radio WRTC competition down in Brazil. And it was the first YL activation in the competition. We didn't win, but we had fun. And I was invited by Papa 43 Echo, which she is now Emily Theo from Aruba. And she passed away. Unfortunately, she was hiking and just died of a massive heart attack, and she was only in her 40s. So I miss my friend Emily dearly. Uh, but I kind of took her under my wing during WRTC. I set up all the station because she always had. I was a technical person, but she was always had somebody help her set up her station. So I says I'll gladly set it up and do all the networking between the computers, and we competed, and it was a lot of fun down in Brazil when we had that competition. And then I took my mom back to the Azores Islands, where actually my ancestors immigrated to this country back in the 1950s. And my mom had never been back to the Azores Islands. So I took her back in 2007 and happened to bring a radio with me and operated, made about 1,000 Qs in the short time I was there in 2017. And then I was invited by Paul and Charlotte again to go down to St. Martin and St. Martin down in the Caribbean to do a CQ Worldwide CW contest. And then it was Banaba, and Jay was with us on Banaba, and we went to Fiji, operated a little from there, and then we went on our way to Banaba and had a great time there. And Jay pulled out a lot of teeth. And then my last trip was actually 2016, which was down to St. Lucia. So that was really the last one out. And my recent thing for the Florida contest, the CUSO party, we went up to Lafayette County here in Florida, which is our smallest county, and did a little portable operation. And I made over, Bob and I made over 1,000 cues, and that was a lot of fun. So we're gonna travel, do a little portable operations here from the state of Florida in our little travel trailer every so often. So I'm looking forward to that. And I want to wish all the mothers out there happy Mother's Day as well. So that's about it for my my amateur radio career. But it's been amateur radio in my career. I love the hobby. 46 years. I have 350 confirmed countries overall, and 340. I have them all. Um, uh, and I even got the North Korea guy on 15-meter sideband many years ago. And that's, of course, that will probably all not be around if there's ever an activation in North Korea. And in my opinion, it should be deleted, but it's only my opinion. So back over to you, Jay. This is Whiskey Alpha One Sierra.
Okay, thank you very much, and that was a wonderful explanation of your ham radio heritage, and you covered so much there, and those all the points I was going to ask you about. So I might have a follow-up question or two. This for ID purposes. This is Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. This is the grand rounds on the internet today. It's a non-medical discussion. We're honoring the women in our ranks in amateur radio for Mother's Day. And we had Ann with us, WA1 Masters, operating out of Florida. And my home call is AA4FL, operating out of Hawthorne, Florida. Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. It's the club call for the Medical Amateur Radio Council. And Ann, you did mention how you got interested. It was a principal of your high school. And you didn't really mention ham role models at that time. So I guess in 1979, it just happened to be the principal that was your role model, happened to be a man. You did talk about lots of female de-expeditioners that you enjoyed traveling with. So I'm trying to remember, Ann, on our trip, when we went to Bonaba to T33A, were you the only YL in our group band, WA1S, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta?
Yeah, this is Whiskey Alpha One Sierra. Yeah, matter of fact, I was, except for, of course, if it wasn't for Annie, she was our advocate, and actually with the political aspects of us getting permission to operate on Banaba. And without her, it would have never happened, because she's actually a native of and her family, and she definitely was an advocate in getting the supplies. And over, they wanted to charge us all kinds of duty tax and everything, and she was able to negotiate and help us get and activate that island, which I enjoyed. That was a very good operation. There was a lot of good times on that island. I'd like to do it again, actually. Ricky, I contact him a lot over in Brazil via Facebook. So he's dying. I told him if he's ever in Florida, come on down. We have a place for him to stay. So, but Henry, yeah, I had a couple other W1MB, old Merrill Budlong. He's one that gave me my first novice test back in '79. And he was, I think back then he was probably in his 80s. So all these are a blast from the past. I've been licensed that long. He was another one that encouraged me to pursue a career in electronics, because I had no idea even what a resistor was until I got in high school, and amateur radio actually sparked it. I played around a little bit CB before that, back in the '70s craze, and I didn't like what was going on CB. Then some principal of my high school kind of said, there's ham radio here. So, and I got involved in a local club. And that was actually most of my career. And there was another guy. Uh, oh, yeah, I'd actually have to look back at his call. It was many years ago. He was also in one of the local clubs and encouraged me to get involved in ham radio. But this was kind of spirit of the moment, so I didn't pull out a lot of sources as far as doing a presentation here. Jay actually asked me yesterday or the day before. Back to you, Jay. A4FL or what? I don't know the call sign you're using. Whiskey Alpha One Sierra.
Okay, fine. Yeah, thank you, Ann. And thank you for being here today to participate in our roundtable discussion. That being said, I'm going to break here for a minute. The call is Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta, Medical Amateur Radio Council. I'm going to take a list here on 20 meters for Ann. Are there any questions for Ann? Again, I'm making a list. Please make your call and let me know if you're interested to be on that list. Okay, is there anyone coming in through Zoom who would like to ask Ann some questions? Raise your hand. WA9ZPL, Stuart, why don't you go ahead and take the microphone? Unmute here, Stuart, unmute. And momentarily, Whiskey Alpha 9 Zulu Papa Limo. Here we go.
Yes, I actually have two questions. The first one, do you have any comment on the currently planned upgrades for radio equipment for the Federal Aviation Administration? Second question, the types of de-expeditions that you describe, they seem to fall under two categories, contest versus holiday style. And can you remark on the pros and cons of each form of activity? Thank you.
Okay. Well, as far as the air to ground communications, they've been steadily being upgraded. A matter of fact, the new radios that are there now are digital capable. But the thing is with that, the whole world has to be on board too. And the FAA, unfortunately, has been using analog for a very long time, and 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 AM. They're still using AM, and they're supposed to be going. There was a new system before I retired. I retired in 2021, so and they were just starting to move over to a voice over IP type connection. But yes, there's probably still a lot of radios out, and I know some of that in Newark that's going on, which it's one of the airports I had never worked in. I worked in a lot of the major airports across New England and here in the Southeast, anywhere from Atlanta Hartsfield, which is our busiest airport, and I was one of the lead engineers in upgrading that air to ground communication systems there. But like I said, that when we retired in 2021, they didn't want us to go. So I don't know what's up going on and how that happened in Newark. I'm really not involved in that. But apparently somebody dropped the ball out there, and that's one of our major, again, major airports. So and as far as the expeditions, yeah, you've got a couple. Holiday style, yeah, you just pack some portable antennas. You go in a hotel. You've got your electricity. You set up your antennas in a nice hotel. You sit there in your air condition, and you have a lot of fun. Then you have the expeditions where you have to bring everything from food to generators to your radios. You have to have all your connectors. You have to test everything ahead of time because there's no Radio Shacks. There's nothing on some of these islands, like Kingman. It was just a reef with absolutely no vegetation at all. Panama had some civilization, but still there was no Radio Shack there. So it takes a lot. There's a lot of logistics careful preparation, testing equipment, and making sure that you've got everything and the antennas too. I was on Clipperton. Clipperton again is an uninhabited island. Weather is a big factor, and a lot of people don't realize this. When you all of a sudden get off the air, it could be you're getting torrential rains or something. And it's easy to sit back in your recliner and say, "Where's my DX?" And you never know what's happening on the other side. And it's a lot of sacrifice, and sometimes putting up this equipment, it's over 100 degrees out there trying to erect antennas, and you get these winds. I know Banaba, things start uh, coming down in these winds, and you have to set them back up. And no matter how much you prepare, it's a lot of work. And that's why I can understand this guy in Marion Island. I don't know what's going on back there, but that's in the top 10, and he's out there by himself. He's actually there for work, and a lot of people are complaining he's doing too much FTA, but he's also been on CW, and I made a contact with him 4 o'clock in the morning the other morning on CW on 20 meters. And he's an excellent CW operator. But a lot of times on these DXpeditions, it's like a bee's nest when you hear some of these pileups, and when you call for one station and everybody keeps coming back and it's not their call sign. I can see how frustrating it is. And I can understand why some of these DXpeditions are migrating over to FTA, because you don't have to deal with some of that stuff. My first love in ham radio is CW, and it always will be. And when FTA first came out, I was like, oh, and this is not ham radio, but it's technology. We're evolving. Electronics. It's just like when we got rid of CW. My heart was broken when we got rid of the credit for CW. But again, it's one of those things you have to shrug it off and just go with the times. Back to you, Jay. Whiskey Alpha 1 Sierra.
Okay, thank you for answering Stuart's questions there. And actually, Ann, I think on FT8, I kind of encouraged you to get on 6-meter FT8, because that's the perfect scenario for it, an area where weak signals really reign, that you see CW is difficult to make contacts unless conditions are reasonable. FT8 overcomes a lot of those problems. So there were 19 of us, Stuart, WA9ZPL on Banaba. And it was so complicated, as Ann mentioned. We had a 40-foot shipping container that went over 3 months ahead of time, and there were 6 of us out of the 19 that met in Tarawa for about 3 or 4 days to provision. So we were able to get some fresh food. And as Ann mentioned, Annie and her sister, who was involved in the government and carried us there in Tarawa, in South Tarawa, assisted greatly. And Annie came along also and brought a cousin to cook for us. So we actually were spoiled in that regard, because there's no stores on the island, no electricity on the island, no running water on the island. And the building we were in, Ricky, who she mentioned, our Brazilian ham, he actually fell through the floor. He was a young guy, and he fell down to his thigh. And I had a urologist and I are the two health professionals. I thought we were really lucky. It just stopped short of all those important parts. I thought we were going to have to do some surgery on him. So it can be pretty rough on these expeditions, but very gratifying. Now, and you're no one-trick pony. Your interests in amateur radio are more than just DX. And thank you for elaborating on the DX. I know you and Bob are involved in emergency communications too. So thank you for all you do. Any other questions now for Ann for WA1S? Make your call on the air on 20 meters to Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta. Okay, no further questions there. What about on our Zoom simulcast? Any questions for Ann? Just raise your hand. Okay, Barry, WB1FFI, Ann, he would like to ask you some questions. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Barry.
Yeah, hi, Ann. I'm just on the Zoom side right now. I can't thank you enough for participating in all the ways that you do. I've had the opportunity to listen to several presenters talk about their experience on DXpeditions, particularly to the Antarctic islands, some of the tropical islands where the conditions are extremes in terms of temperature, weather, wind, and so forth. The preparation involved, the actual dollars cost that's involved, particularly as we going forward, preparing for the unknown, essentially, and being able to make changes and adaptations on the fly when things aren't working as planned, because the terrain may not be what everyone expected it to be. So mounting the antennas and so forth. So I've been able to glean just an essence of what's involved with all this, and all of your involvement with emergency communications and so forth is just something we can all be proud of as ham radio operators. This is what we do, and it's important for the world to understand. I don't know if the word gets out enough that we do these fabulous things, and people like you deserve a tremendous amount of credit. I know the ARRL recognizes things, but sometimes even at the national level, it really deserves tremendous recognition. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it back to you, Jay, for any other comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Nice comments, Barry. Nice comments. You know, we do have physicians that go along on the major DXpeditions. Our Medical Amateur Radio Council, we have a few members. The one in Bonneville was Arnie, N68C, that was with us. He's a urologist. And I think it's pretty wicked when you're 1,000 miles from anything. You have to let the Coast Guard know where you're at, and hopefully you don't need them to, you know, to fly you out of there. It was quite an experience, one that I don't know, Ann's done these many times. For me, I think my heart can only handle the one right now. I'm going to pause here for a second, and we're going to do additional check-ins. If you're listening and you'd like to ask questions, participate, all amateurs should check in and participate. This is an app that's open to everyone. It's not just for Medical Amateur Radio Council members. Make your call to Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta to check in. And no additional check-ins. By the way, one of our members, the one we were talking about, Arnie Schatz, Dr. Schatz, he was on the Bouvet expedition. Talk about frustration, getting within sight of Bouvet and having to turn around. So, you know, giving up a month of your life and the kind of money that it took to go to Bouvet. Those are the type of Medical Amateur Radio Council members we have. And Ann had mentioned that there was a sorority or fraternity of operators, and many other women operators that do DX. So amateur radio is, of course, well beyond DX. We have leaders in our own organization. Mary Favero, AE4BX, was a past president and current fourth area call director, who's a physician. Linda Krasowski, who's a past president, fifth call area director, is an RN, a nurse. And Diane Robin, our current treasurer, who's RN. NM2K, and Alana Condor, K4 AAC, who's a psychiatrist, a clinical psychologist, excuse me, and specializes in young individuals in trauma, head trauma. She's a membership committee member. So we're very fortunate through the years to have a lot of powerful women leaders, both in our organization and other organizations. We're going to talk about the heritage here of amateur radio and women. Gladys Kathleen Parkin was born in 1900. And she began interested in wireless telegraphy when she was 5, and she later operated an amateur station from her home for 6 years, which, according to some sources, were the first amateur station in California, where she lived. Isn't that amazing? She then obtained her first-class commercial radio license in 1916 when she was 15 years old. Became the youngest female recipient of a radio license at the time. But what she did for amateur radio community by existing in the male-dominated hobby, that too in the early 1900s can be regarded as an immense contribution to future female ham operators. And if you go to YouTube, there's a video on the women of early amateur radio. There was a conference and a presentation from the Wireless Museum. And there was a story told about 1918. Eunice Randall was hired by AMRAD, which is a business, as their first woman draftsman. And later she would serve as an engineer and announcer for Radio 1XE. She was very unusual for her day. She had a great interest in amateur radio. Her amateur radio calls were 1 CBP back in the old call formats. And from her Cape Cod home, she built a small station, call letters ER, from which she transmitted. This caught the attention of highly respected amateur who lived not far from her hometown, who would become the founder of WNBH New Bedford, around the same time that 1XE was turning into a full-time radio job for Miss Randall. So she could do amazing things, and was a glowing tribute to Ms. Randall's skills in the July 1921 issue of QST, in those early years of QST editions. She moved to Boston with the intention of studying art, but being she was considered unusual in the technical profession, being that first female radio engineer was the American Radio and Research Company. That's what AMRAD was. And then, of course, she was the announcer for 1XE, and she was the first woman on the air in Boston, etc. And you can see that information on Wikipedia if you look up Eunice Randall. Currently, in the more contemporary world, we've had a leader for many years at the ARR level, Kay Kringle. Now, if you look at some of my certificates for awards, she's the one that signs it as ARL president. She's very humble. If you go to her QRZ page, nary a mention of that. She mentioned being an elected official from 1986 to 2016, 30 years, but really she talks about all her operating aspects, the different awards that she's participated in, being BUCC, DXCC, WIS. She enjoys amateur radio to Skywarn as well. Very, very humble. But if you go on the ARRL website and look for N3KN or just Google it, you'll see the ARRL article that included her 3 decades as a league official in 2016. A very nice write-up all about her, the very dedicated service to the amateur radio. Your own organization of amateur radio, someone so involved to reach the pinnacle as being president. We have some other hams a little before that. Clara Rieger of Buffalo, New York, and perhaps Dave is more familiar with her work, since Dave and Diana from Buffalo, if they're still with us here today. But she was a lifelong helper of those who were interested in radio and electronics, and she was so cherished that even today, the Yankee Lima of Chile organization, CE4YLC, has a QSL, an event for her, special event for her, and explanations of her life. And you can find photographs and QSL cards online, W2RUF. Diane and Dave, KM2M and M2K, are you still with us on 20 meters? Go ahead. Okay, well, they checked in earlier. It's a busy Mother's Day with a lot of activities. But they're from the Buffalo area, and they included this information last year. And she's so cherished by that organization in Chile. They also have a special Dia de la Madre for Mother's Day happening every year. So she was the forerunner for those activities. Denise Stoops, KI6BBR, is among the female ham radio operators that are living the legacy. And after becoming the first female commercially licensed telegrapher, an American privately owned station post-World War II, she acquired her amateur radio membership. That was not the only of her radio firsts. Her ham club invited her to board of directors, and she became the first female president of that club in 65 years of history. And she was a role model for women. She supported and encouraged many women to join the hobby, wrote columns and newsletters dedicated to female operators, and endeavored to inspire women to continue their involvement in amateur radio. And if you go to YouTube and look for Denise Stoops, you will find a video of her operating CW, a CW operator just like Ann. This is dear to my heart. Evelyn Gosens, when I was young, I was only 13 years old when I got licensed in the early 1970s. So we talk about someone that was a leader in Miami area, actually was the organizer of the Hamboree Hamfest, back when it was a very vibrant hamfest, and she was married to a ham as well, and had harmonics that are ham. So W4WYR was Evelyn Gosens. She was notoriety at the national level. She moved to Dunedin, Florida from Miami later and passed away in 2016. But she was a leader, and I remember her well. She was motivational. She was a good role model for me. She was right there in Miami near the National Hurricane Center, and received awards of appreciation during the annual Amateur Radio Hurricane Conference. She was honored that same year for 50 years in the ARL. She was a QCWA member, Dade Radio Club of Miami, and the Florida Fed Traffic Net. She also belonged to the A1 Operators Club. She currently, of course, she's passed away now, but her granddaughter is an amateur. Her granddaughter continued in that female role model. She lives in Alexandria, Virginia, and has the call of her father, W4DTJ, and the W4WYR call, one of her sons. In Dunedin, where she moved to, William Gosens picked up the license. Alan Gosens is there well. I'm not sure if that's a grandson or another son. So Evelyn is dear to my heart, and I vividly remember and honor her. What a fantastic individual. In the contemporary world, you see YLs that are very active. The newer technologies are bringing a lot of new talents to the world. We're talking about being on YouTube, people that are in multimedia, different aspects of publicity. Valerie Holsfield, MV9L, was an Amateur of the Year at Hamvention in 2018. And we're talking about YouTube videos. People are, I'm trying to remember the name of the YouTube show that she is on, but she's actively involved in promoting amateur radio. You can see those if you look up NV9L on YouTube, and you can see those videos. And N2RJ, active director, is the ARDC, Amateur Radio Digital Communications, 2023 to present. Somebody that's very active again in a very contemporary area of our hobby, a very electronic computer-centered area of our hobby. And you can check out her QRZ page. Then we have W4DXY, who entered amateur radio after her father passed away to continue his legacy and brought her talents to amateur radio. Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and constantly on and very active. So unless we have any further questions for Ann and myself, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor. I'm going to turn it over to Stuart, WA9ZPL. Unmute Stuart.
Oh, I recall many years ago that Marco had as a president Dr. Christine Haycock, who was in New Jersey and was a heart surgeon. Does anyone remember her?
Does anybody on 20 meters remember this past president? Stuart, it predated me as well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you remember about her? WA9ZPL, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta.
This was an era when almost all heart surgeons were men. She was one of the few women. And although I did not know her well, I had a chance to have breakfast with her at Dayton one year and heard something of her career. I believe that she is a silent key for a while.
Well, that's a testament to how early she was involved in amateur radio as a woman. She's been the silent key for a while, Stuart. And hopefully we'll see a lot more. You know, when you start dealing with these preteens and teens, it's the perfect time to catch them where they have other interests, whether it be robotics or Legos, scouting for the guys. If we don't catch them and we wait till they're in medical school, it's very, very hard.
Excuse me, the Boy Scouts of America, now known as Scouting, does accept female scouts for the past few years.
Exceptional. And I'm glad that we'll get more and more young ladies into amateur radio that way, Stuart. And we'll have to look at that participation level and see the level of involvement. But satellites, what they're doing with AMSAT, you know, they're equal. Women, if you go to in Stuart, you also have residents, I believe, who worked in a hospital. How many of the students you work with do you think, or percentage-wise, are women? WA9ZPL, Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta.
It's more than half. And I know that's also true nationally. More than half of all medical students these days are female.
Yeah, the same here for dental students. Probably about 2/3 are women, and excellent students. Everyone's equal. Guys, gals. It doesn't matter if you're diminutive or you get extracted to surgery, and you know, everybody's smart and organized. And I couldn't get into dental school now. I've got to commend the University of Florida admissions committee though for the dental school, because these are fine individuals, well beyond just looking at their dentistry aspects. They're nice people. They have compassion. They work as team members. They're not full of themselves. And I would hope all medical schools and dental schools are the same way. And veterinary schools, my gosh, the one here in Gainesville has been 75% female for many, many years. So let's catch them early, like Stuart said, and Boy Scouts of America, Scouts of America now. And let's find ways to involve young ladies. They're the future of our hobby. And here we are, where most of us are in our 60s and beyond here at Marco. We have a few younger members. And let's recognize that we used to have 600 members back at the time Stuart was talking about. And then, you know, now we've got about a third of that. Now, granted, the Grand Rounds in the Air were fulfilling a continuing education modality at the time, which nowadays you can get continuing education from home more readily. And being the public airways, probably not the best place for that. We've opted to have more of the forum and participation. So thank you to all of you on 20 meters for allowing us to use the frequency. We are here every week at this time, for this hour. It is a POTA frequency, a POTA range. So thank you for everyone giving us the clear, open frequency. Do we have any other further comments before we bring the net to a close? I'm going to take comments on 20 meters. Make your call. Okay, we've got Ed 3 AM. Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we had Marco member is now deceased, or he's on to Gene Honey, and him and Jeff Creighton were quite close friends. And additional information on Creighton.
Okay, thank you, Keith. You're a little bit of QSB faded out. Thank you for telling us that Kay Creedy, the president of the ARL, was close enough with one of our members, Gene Hoenick, to speak at our meetings. And Gene had a wife that also was an amateur radio operator, so it wasn't just Gene, and she was involved as well. That's family members to to Jeff Wolf, current member, K6JW. Of course, the Honings are now no longer, they're deceased. But through the years, we've been very fortunate to been able to interact with a lot of well-known individuals in amateur radio, some of them women. If you go back at every issue of the Ether and look at 25 years before in the Ether or 10 years before in the Ether, you'll find some of the speakers were astronauts, famous individuals in their fields. It's worth a read. A current version of the Ether is on the Healthcare Hams website, but don't look for the Ether button. Not the Ether tab. Look for there's a post tab. Look for the most current post. You should have gotten an email with that information directly. Any other further comments? This is Whiskey Bravo 5 Delta AA4FL, the mic out of Hawthorne, Florida. Any further comments before we bring the net to a close?
Quick comment.
Okay, Barry, WB1FFI. Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart, for bringing up Christine Haycock, MD. I just looked down my list of former presidents. She was president of Marco, 1981 to 1983. Whiskey Baker 2, Yankee Baker Alpha, and I think Jay had commented that she's a silent key. I don't have that information, but it's nice to give tribute to our former leaders, and particularly because it's Mother's Day, a female leader of Marco back in the days when that was a rarity. So I just wanted to add that on. Thank you, Jay.
Okay, thank you. WB1FFI, Barry in Syracuse, New York. Thank you for that acknowledgement. Stuart, thank you again for bringing that to our attention. That just predated my activity. I was just finishing up dental school at the time and didn't have the good fortune. I joined Marco a little bit later. And Anne, thank you, WA1S, for being here with us today on Mother's Day weekend. And all of you, go ahead and spoil your spouses if you're a guy. Spoil your spouses here on Mother's Day, whether they're a mother or not. And this is all about them. Let's get off the air and return the frequency back to those that want to operate POTA. Now, if you're operating POTA today and you don't have your wife along, probably do it at your own risk. I hope you did a makeup. This is AA4FL, thanking those who allowed us to clear frequency, saying 7.3, bringing the net to a close. Yeah, I stopped the recording for those of you that are on Zoom. And if you want to unmute,